Yeah, it's the same with our national train company, SJ.
Yeah.
They can they can sometimes be late, but quite often they are at least 5 minutes late. Yeah.
Great to know. So then I know for my trip to Stockholm this week.
Yeah, don't be surprised if you're like 10, 15 minutes delayed.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'm just feeling like home and then.
Yeah, yeah, great. Perfect.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of this podcast. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more, maybe a little bit more risky, I would say it. It's definitely not going to be an episode that should offend anybody, but we are clearing out some stereotypes of Sweden today. Since I've arrived here, I've learned a lot about Sweden and the culture and also about my culture. For example, like we Germans are always punctual or we tend to plan a lot, especially when going on a vacation or something like this. But I've also maybe myself had some stereotypes about Sweden or prejudice about Sweden and cliches. But I've also heard a lot of them. But yeah, we're going to debunk them today and clear it out. And for that, I have another doormate of mine. So please welcome everybody, Anton.
Thank you, thank you.
Would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, sure. My name is Anton. I'm 21 years old. I'm currently studying my second year here at the university. And I'm studying for science in business and economics. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. Well, then let's just hop right into the topic, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
Have you heard some like prejudice and cliches about your own country? What is like typical for your country?
Yeah, I've heard, I can name two, and it's like Sweden is expensive. And yeah, I'd say if you're not like earning Swedish wages, I'd say that it can seem expensive. And again, everything is like relative and it depends on what you compare to. But if you like compare with the rest of Europe, excluding Norway, yeah, it can absolutely be seen as expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one is that it's cold, and that is generally true. It's generally colder, like than Middle and Southern Europe, but can still get very hot during the summers with like 30 degrees Celsius not being uncommon, especially during like the last summers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are two of the things that like are prejudice I've heard about Sweden.
Yeah, I've heard about the first one as well.
Yeah.
And coming here, I also was like, oh, it's so expensive here. And because when you go on a Erasmus semester, the money you get from the EU is stacked up in like which category of the country is in you going, and Sweden is in the most expensive category, so you receive the most money for it.
Yeah.
And that is also an indicator for that. But of course, when you're living here and you get the wages here, it's relatives. It's also,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So this is also something that I've heard, and I think also a stereotype or cliche that we've like debunked already.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
So what would you say is like then very typical for Sweden?
Yeah. It's one of the most Swedish things is midsummer, where you like meet up with the family and friends, and you drink like liquor and you eat like Swedish dishes with like different like cakes and you eat eggs and prawns and stuff like that, and you dance around the midsummer pole and stuff. That's very, very Swedish. Another Swedish thing is fika. And that's essentially to meet up with your friends or someone you know for a cup of coffee, and often to have like some cookie or bakery as a complement to that. But yeah, that's midsummer fika is probably the most Swedish things that exist.
Yeah.
And also a thing that is very typical for Sweden is we are very meticulous with time and being punctual. And sure, we like to like plan ahead a lot too. So yeah, those are three things that are very typical for Sweden, I think. Yeah.
To the fika thing, I also have to say, when I did my research on this topic, what was like considered typical Sweden or what are some prejudices, I actually did not find fika as something very typical. But I feel like I also known that just because I now live here for this half year, and I think that's also something you kind of learn when you really dive into the culture and just live with the people and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, because it's not really like a direct translation for fika in English, and that's that can make it harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I first thought that fika is maybe something like we have during the afternoon. We call it just Kaffee trinken, which is like drinking coffee, and then we have like coffee and some, I don't know, dessert to it. So I kind of think of fika something like this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, then I would say, just to really get started, I prepared some short sentences.
Yeah.
And you just kind of quickly answer if it was right or wrong.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, we're going to look at some of them a little bit more closely. Okay, so then get started with the Q&A.
Yeah.
Swedish people are blonde and pretty, very reserved and distanced.
Yes, I'd say like the blonde stuff, that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of brunettes here, and I've heard like from abroad that Swedish people generally are pretty. I don't know, but that's what I've heard too. I can't really tell. Very reserved and distant. I think that we can seem like reserved and distant at first, but like generally when you get to know us, we are like friendly people that are always happy to help. So yeah, I absolutely see that we can seem reserved and distant, but yeah, after a while then that can change.
Okay. Next one. There are only red wooden houses.
Yeah, no, there are not only wooden red houses, absolutely not. Like if you go to any city in Sweden, you will see that. Although there is like a high number of wooden houses in the countryside, like in northern Sweden, and a lot of them are red. Yeah, it's a popular color in Sweden to have.
I noticed that when going to the Moose Park, when you are not in the city and you have like just some like smaller villages, but your small villages are basically spreaded houses.
Yeah.
They're usually red.
Yeah, they
so
are.
That's, but obviously we're not living in a red wooden house, so.
No, we are not.
Okay, next one. You only eat köttbullar and pancakes.
That's a classic stereotype, but no, we don't only eat that. I mean, it's dishes that most Swedes eat sometimes, but it's more common to eat other things like traditional food. Yeah. So yeah, Swedes eat that sometimes, but yeah, it's more common with other food.
And if you've listened to last episodes, you're going to know what Swedes eat and what not. Next one. Moose are constantly running on the streets.
No, moose don't constantly run in the streets. In my life, I have only seen like one moose family that was not like in a park or zoo. And I think it might be more common to spot wild moose like in the northern Sweden. Yeah. But no, they don't constantly run in the streets.
Good to know. So you don't have to be too careful on the streets.
No.
The weather is always bad.
I don't know. We have like a saying in Sweden that's always raining on midsummer, and it's always like raining during the fall. But I don't know. Other than that, I think we have like a pretty normal weather. But yeah, during the fall it can rain very much, and that's when the weather is really bad.
I have to say, when I talk to some friends and just told them that it's like very raining a lot these days, they've asked me a couple of times if I actually went to England and not to Sweden. So, but I also heard there's no bad weather, just bad clothing.
Yeah,
so.
That's a very Swedish thing.
Yeah.
No bad weather, only bad clothing.
Okay, next one. Your national sport is ice hockey.
I can see where this comes from, considering we are one of the world's like biggest hockey nations. But we actually don't have like an official national sport. Some people say it's like ice hockey, and some say it's football. So, yeah, it's like divided, but nothing official.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at that
Yeah.
very soon. Take it easy as a life motto. I found out the sentence ta det.
Ta det lugnt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's our life motto, to be honest. We are ambitious, hardworking, work our full-time weeks, and then like to take our time off, like during the weekends, do stuff. Yeah, I don't know, it might be, but yeah.
I think I found it also very interesting because I also feel like that you're kind of like chilled, and at the same time you're very like stressed out at something. So
Yeah.
okay, next one. Licorice is very popular.
Yes, licorice is very popular. That's very, very true. It's a very Swedish thing.
I heard of a combination of fish with licorice.
Fish with licorice.
Fish with licorice.
It might be because a popular form of like licorice is to have them like in fish. Could be that, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that there might be something wrong over
Yeah,
there.
it might be.
Now another very typical one. Most surnames start with son.
That's very true, and I think that dates back to the Viking Age or something, when you have like a name and you have a son at the end, so like that parent's son.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that's true.
I also noticed that when reading like on your letter boxes downstairs,
yeah.
you can also like read the surnames,
Yeah.
and there you also find a lot of
Yeah.
son and
Yeah,
also
you
make
do.
courses.
Yeah.
Okay, last one before we look at some more closely. Nothing works without a coffee break or fika.
I don't know if like it wouldn't work without coffee breaks or fika, but I do know that Swedes consume a ton of coffee,
Yes.
and like to go fika during their free time. That's definitely something that.
Great. Yeah, I also read in some tourist guide that you're like top one when it comes to drinking coffee, and I
Yeah.
always thought it might be the Italians or I don't know, French people.
Yeah.
But so that was a surprise for me
Yeah.
that you're actually top one.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's look at some a little bit more closely.
Yeah.
In the past month, you and I, and sometimes also with Gustav, we've talked a lot about sports since
Yeah.
you always watch football and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And then we can also go back to the typical thing with the national sport, ice hockey. You also maybe find like words you're only good at winter sport.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something about the sport landscape?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's like, I can see why people think that ice hockey is a national sport, because if you look at like titles with World Cups and stuff, we are one of the most successful nations. But at the same time, like our football association like to address like our sport as the national sport, while like hockey association, they like to address it as a national sport. So it's very divided. But if we are only good in winter sports, I don't think that's entirely true. I can name like we are European champions in handball. We are world champions in floorball. We have the world record in height, like for pole vaulting. And like our women's football national team is ranked second in the world by FIFA. So I think we are generally better at winter sports, considering like the climate and stuff, but it's not entirely true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very interesting, because when you look at Germany, we usually have like football and handball as the big stuff. And when I came here, it was just like, oh, have you gone to the ice hockey match already? It's so good. Karlstad is so good.
Yeah.
And that was actually the first time that I saw an ice hockey match.
Yeah.
But I think maybe Germany has also a little bit bigger in ice hockey, but yeah.
Yeah.
So there might also be a stereotype that I took with to Sweden.
Yeah.
But
it's true. It's very popular.
yeah.
Yeah. It's ice hockey and football are like the two big sports in Sweden. Yeah.
Yeah. And also for football, it would like speak more that you also have like the famous football player Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Yeah, Ibrahimovic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I find it quite interesting that we are very mediocre at like men's level, but we are one of the world's best national teams on the women's side. I find it quite interesting because if you look like at Germany, they have both a very good men's team and both a very good women's team, and the same goes with like France and England. But Sweden has a very mediocre men's team and a very good women's team, so I find it that quite interesting.
yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah.
But in generally, I think you're very sportive people.
Yeah, we are. I watched like some article, and we were like in the top list of like being sporting people. Like
I also thought of that because I think you have a great variety here in the university when it comes to sports stuff. And also when we went to climbing with Danya, you have those big halls where you can do a ton of sports like floorball, ice hockey, climbing, etc. So I think that's also pretty nice here in Sweden that you have this like strong will to do sports.
Yeah, that's very true.
Now you talked about like some sort of gender in sports already. That's pretty equal, or you have like a strong female and male teams. You guys are also said to be the best in gender equality in general.
Yeah, I'd say I mean there are like indexes that measure that. I haven't looked upon that, but I think that we're definitely one of the world's most equal countries. That's true. A lot of focus is on equality, gender equality. So yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah. And now another thing, lifestyle, as you already said, you guys love to be punctual.
Yeah.
Which I also noticed during the classes because they like close the door when it's time for the lessons to start. But still, you are very informal because you always speak from each other with your first name, and still you seem kind of reserved and distant.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like we are informal, like how we address people. Like we don't say the surnames of our teachers and stuff. And like I said before, like we might come across as reserved at first. But like if you get to know the person or give them a drink or two, and that will change. Or like when the nation is doing well in a like sports competition, that mood tends to change. We aren't so reserved anymore. But yeah, I can just definitely see where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Germany sometimes, or at least me and my family, we also talk about a cold politeness.
Yeah.
Since we've spent a lot of time already in Norway and the people there are very similar. It's also when coming here that you're like give others their space if they want to, but still be like, if you have any questions, you can come to me and ask.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And then I also talked, I think, with Elvira about this because it's so uncommon that the teachers actually lock the door in a class, and still the teachers seem so chilled and relaxed and easygoing, but they're very strict when it comes to punctuality.
Yeah, they are. I've never experienced that they like lock the doors, but if you come late to a class, like during high school or during school, you would like sense that the teacher is like irritated. You would see on the teacher that they maybe not like it so much. So yeah, we are very punctual, and like to like plan ahead.
Did you ever come too late in school or high school?
Yeah, I did. I was always very punctual, but it was times that maybe my alarm, I didn't wake up to my alarm or something, and then I was late. And it was not nice because I felt like the teacher stared me out and like the classmates did too. So yeah, you learn after that you weren't gonna be late. Yeah.
Good to know that.
Yeah.
What I've also found out about the punctuality stuff, I feel like the buses come pretty late still.
Yeah, they do. I think that applies to me. I am very meticulous with time and like being punctual. I mean, I can get like irritated if I have like said a time with a friend and they are like 5 to 10 minutes late, I get like irritated, but I don't want to show it, but I get like irritated, and I sometimes I like send a text message like, I thought we said 2, but yeah, I could get irritated like the bus drivers too, if they are several minutes late. So yeah, I noticed that too. They are some minutes late.
It reminds me actually so much of the Deutsche Bahn, because we are also said to be very punctual, and then the Deutsche Bahn is just not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with our national train company, SJ.
Yeah.
They can sometimes be late, but quite often they are at least 5 minutes late. Yeah.
Great to know. So then I know for my trip to Stockholm this week.
Yeah, don't be surprised if you're like 10, 15 minutes delayed.
Okay,
yeah.
Great. I'm just feeling like home and then.
Yeah, great. Perfect.
Okay. So now we've talked like a little bit about lifestyle, typical way of life in Sweden. And what I've also noticed is that nature is like a big part of your life. You guys are always outside in the forest, and you also collect mushrooms and stuff.
Yeah, maybe not always, but we do like to go outside into the forest. We are like a people that, we like to go outside into the wilderness, into nature, and collect mushrooms. Some Swedes do that. I myself have not done it like for a couple of years now, but it's nice to go with friends or with often family. You have like a little picnic and you collect mushrooms, and that's a Swedish thing, absolutely.
I also enjoy that very much, that we have forest in front of our door basically, and just can take a walk.
Yeah.
I think also it's very Swedish, I honestly have to say.
Yeah, if you look, because it's I think like 70% of Sweden's like area is forested, so that tells quite a lot that there's a lot of forest here. Yeah, I mean, southern Sweden is more like the rest of Europe, but like when you get to middle and like northern Sweden, it's very, very much forest. Yeah,
and then we also had like the red houses and all the moose that you can see in the nature.
Yeah, that's a very like Swedish thing, like the forest, the red house, moose.
Yeah. And there's also the northern lights that's said to be always out. Yeah,
I've actually, I think northern lights are more common like in the northern Sweden, but I think I've actually seen like only one northern light in my entire life. And it might be that I wasn't like paying attention, but I still think it would have caught my attention if it was up when I was there. But yeah, I've actually only seen one northern light in my life. Yeah.
Interesting. So that's for everybody who says, Swedish people are always seeing the northern lights and stuff.
Someone who is from Kiruna might have a different story, but
I mean, I miss the northern lights that we already had here, but I'm hoping that when I go to Kiruna next week, that I have my chance to see them there.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Because it's also not common to see in Karlstad northern lights, actually, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
And I think we had it pretty early. Was it in September, I think, already? And that's so unnatural, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I think middle Sweden, like southern Sweden, it's not very, very common. It's the northern Sweden I think you see the most.
So if you come to Sweden and want to see some northern lights, you might consider going a little bit more to the north.
Yeah, definitely.
And enjoy them there.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other prejudices and cliches about Sweden which would you say are true and that show how typical Sweden?
Yeah, I'd say like the punctuality. It's true. We're very meticulous with time, and like we like to plan ahead, and we like to drink a ton of coffee. Let's see here. Licorice is very popular too. And köttbullar, pancakes is popular too, although we don't eat them that often. A high concentration of red wooden houses, especially in like the countryside in Sweden, although not in the city. So yeah, I'd say I understand where all these like stereotypes come from. Like most of them are are true, but not like the same extent. Like the prejudice said, like mooses are constantly running in the street. They exist. I've seen like one family once, but yeah, it's not the same extent as the prejudice say. So yeah.
Maybe also a more high concentration of blonde people, but not everybody is blonde.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that too.
Yeah. Yeah, you can like when you do research on it, you can find so many interesting things about it. For example, I also read that Swedish women are more taller than in the rest of Europe and stuff like that. It's very interesting to read that actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what I'm very interested in, do you guys have prejudices and cliches towards other nations that come to your mind?
Yeah, I think we do. And like we could begin with like our neighbor. We like to address them as little brother because they've always been like they've been part of Sweden before and stuff. But they're we like to make jokes with Norwegians and jokes that Norwegians are dumb and stuff. But it's like, you know, like brotherly love. So we like tease them and they tease us in the back. And like a prejudice against like the United States would be that they're like fat and ignorant. But I think that's generally quite a like common stereotype towards USA. And like maybe Finland would be that it's gray over there and like people constantly go to the sauna. And like French, like they like snails and are arrogant. And and Italians, like they are not very meticulous and they like pasta and uses their hands very much when they talk. So that's much like, that could be like popular stereotypes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those stereotypes that you just said would also apply to some stereotypes that we have, also maybe with the US, for example.
Yeah.
And also, in France it would be also like the frog thing they have there, or the Italians that they're like very much into family and stuff.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. And I think especially regarding like stereotypes and prejudice about Norway and Finland, we also talked about it. And kind of Mila at least has like said that one would be kind of true with going to the sauna during Christmas. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, it feels like your Scandinavian countries are like a family.
Yeah, we are.
You're
it's
mocking
like,
each other and still support each other.
Yeah, that's actually true.
That's kind of cute, actually.
Yeah, it is. We like to. I mean, if you look at right now, we like to make jokes about the Danes too. But if you look, I don't know 100%, but I think I've like looked it up, and I think like in history, no countries has been to war with each other more than Sweden has with Denmark. So I mean, it's coming from somewhere, but right now we are like, it's brotherly love. I mean, but I generally say that Swedes are more fond of Norwegians than they are of Danes. But still, we are all Scandinavians, and we would back each other.
Yeah, that's nice. I think we also had that when it comes to hockey. With the support of if your own country basically leaves, then you support the other one. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, at least me, I'm more like, I tend to support Norway more in sports than I do Denmark. But like Finland and Sweden are the only like good nations in ice hockey. So if Sweden goes out of tournament, I like want to Finland to win it. And Mila has said like vice versa, that they support Sweden if Finland goes out. So that's true. We are like a little family.
I can just agree to that, because that's obviously also something that I've noticed so far. Okay, well, then we're already down to the last question. Is there anything else on your mind that you would like to say to defend your own country?
No, not really. I mean, I've already debunked or confirmed like stereotypes, but I think that we have like went through like the stuff.
Yeah. And I think also that we have like kind of gotten like an overall glimpse of Sweden, for example, sports.
absolutely.
We haven't had sports yet, or a little bit of the whole nature stuff. We could go on now with music, that ABBA is like
Yeah.
the band or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, it's music is also a very big thing in Sweden. I think Ed Sheeran's like said Sweden was like the home of music or something. But yeah, we have ABBA, we have Avicii. So yeah, we are popular with music, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually quite interesting to see if you really look that up for how many things Sweden is actually popular. If it's music, if it's maybe also sports at some sort, or if it's that you're very modern and high technology and stuff.
Yeah.
It's also something that you've heard, but when you come here, I think you can also see that to a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
And they're also quite interesting because some like inventions that you like when you heard about it, like, oh, is this invention Swedish? Like, for example, like the zipper, I think is Swedish, and like dynamite is Swedish. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting to see when you didn't know it before, like when you read that, okay, this invention is Swedish. So yeah.
Yeah. It's also, for example, when it goes to science and stuff, that you guys actually are very fun when it comes to the Nobel Prize, and that you actually basically host it every year. When I found that out, I was also, oh, interesting. That's Sweden.
Yeah.
I mean, it's years ago that I found that out, but it's still very interesting. And you also have like a museums of that. And yeah, I think that's very, very interesting. And it's also part of your culture. So it's very nice that we could be able to get a glimpse of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well then, thank you very much for
Thank you.
taking your time and being on this podcast.
Sure. No worries.
I hope it was fun for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun.
Nice. And then it's nothing left to say than to wish you guys all a very nice weekend. Have a fika, coffee break with your friends or family or on your own. Be Swedish, typical Swedish.
Yeah.
And then just have a nice next week. Start smooth, start good. And then we're hear each other next week again with the wrap up of November already. And as we always say, we're saying goodbye with the Swedish hej då and the Norwegian ha det bra.
Hej då, ha det bra.
Hej då, bye.